Hey guys, it's Ray. Do you recognize this? You may have seen it in my other videos. Inside the van, when I'm done cooking at night, I put the air fryer in the stove on this shelf I made. Outside the van, I can take the shelf from inside and use it outside as a workbench. Other side of the van, I've got that same shelf, but this time it's hooked on the passenger side. Back inside the van, I use it to secure the sink, the compost bin, and the stove. And out here away from the van, that same shelf makes for a great food prep table. It's a shelf, a workbench, a cooktop, a mounting base. I use this thing everywhere. Coming up, everything you need to know to make a DIY camper van table just like this. Plus the quick connect rails and the magic table leg that make it all possible. At its core, it's just a cheap piece of wood, but the versatility I get from using it in so many different ways, it makes it one of the most valuable parts of this whole build. My minivan is smaller than most, so I had to find creative ways to store things while in camp mode, and the space above the front seats was just being wasted. I knew I wanted a shelf up front, and I knew it needed to be flat, so I decided I'd use the steering wheel kind of as one of the base points for it. So the first thing I did is I went to the release latch under the column, and I flipped that, and the steering wheel comes down low, and I want this thing as low as possible because I want as much storage space above it as I can get. Next, I'll move the seat all the way forward, and I'm also going to lean it all the way forward. And that gets it pretty level with the steering wheel, and that's what I wanted. 2 points of level contact here. And remember to move your passenger seat all the way forward too. So now we're gonna measure from the front of the steering wheel to the back of the seat back, and it's 13 inches right here for mine, but you want your shelf to be wider because if it's too thin, it really limits what you can put on top of it. All right, and then the next measurement we're gonna do is from the edge of the driver's seat over here, all the way across to the edge of the passenger seat. For me, it's 48 inches, and this is important. Next, you want to get an old 2x4 or a piece of scrap wood, nothing expensive. You want to cut it to that length. Mine is 48 inches. Balance it on the top of the seats right here, and you want to close the door. What we're doing here is trying to make sure the shelf is going to fit with the door closed, and if it's too long, you may have to trim it down, but you want to gently close your door to make sure that it fits. So now we need this shelf. I bought this pre-cut project board. You can get these for 15 bucks from any hardware store. This one is 16 inches wide by 48 inches long, so I didn't have to cut it. So now you got your board cut, you want to balance it on top of the seat tops and the steering wheel, and you'll see here that it's solid, but it wiggles around, so we need to fix that. Now, if you have seat handles on the back of your seats, this next step is going to be all you need. If you don't have those, stick around, I'll have another step that'll help you out there. I experimented and I found that these 2x2 blocks, these are 3 inches long. Yours will be shorter or longer. This is the most solid way to kind of mount these. You want to have this on the bottom of your shelf and it will slide into the seat back handle. So first, to mark these, you want to slide it into the middle there. Then you want to slide your shelf over the top, okay? Then you're going to line it up there, make sure it's flush, and now we're going to mark it. So once you have it in position here, you want to trace around it on the bottom of the shelf. I've already done mine, but you want to trace around that 2x2 and make an outline, and then you want to do the same thing on the passenger side. Next, you want to put that shelf board on a flat surface. I've got mine on this workbench out here, and I have it clamped down. And for this, we're going to use 2.5-inch deck screws. Deck screws are awesome because they come with this little star bit, also called a Torx bit, and it really keeps it from stripping out. We also want to do pilot holes, and for that, you need a skinny drill bit, one a little bit thinner than the screw itself, okay? And now you're going to drill your pilot hole in the center of this outline that we just drew for the 2x2. I've already drilled mine here, but you want to drill that in the center and drill all the way through. You want to do that on both sides of the board. Now, also, you can pre-drill a hole into the 2x2. It's not necessary, but it helps out if you do have it pre-drilled. All right, once you have all your holes drilled, we're going to flip the board over. I like to drive the deck screw into the shelf until it peeks through about 1/2 inch on the bottom. Now I'll center the block on the tip of the screw. That's where that pilot hole comes in handy. Hold it steady and screw it in the rest of the way with a drill. And then we'll do the same thing for the block on the other end. Now I'm going to test this out on top of the seats. So I'm going to line my 2x2 legs up in the center of those handles, and you're going to push down flat. Then you're going to lean over to the other side of the board. You're going to push it down flat. And then if it's solid and it doesn't wiggle too much, well, then you're done. You've got a DIY removable shelf. And if you don't have these handles in the back of your seats, still go ahead and put these 2x2 legs in. They'll keep it from moving forward. But on the front up here, you want to find some way to clamp your steering wheel to the shelf. If your shelf is still a little wiggly or you want to put something heavier on this side, you can add a 2x2 leg as a support right here on the corner, and it can just rest on the seat. Now for the fun part, let's turn this shelf into a table. And for that, we need quick connect rails. You can get these aluminum support rails on Amazon. They come in pairs that lock together. One side is mounted in your rig, the other is mounted to the table, and it just slides over the top and locks into place. These are 30 inches long when you get them, but I suggest cutting them in half so then you'll have two 15-inch sections. I have one mounted on the driver's side. So this shelf has two quick connects on it, and I hooked the monopod up down here. As the saying goes, everything in van life has to serve two or more purposes. I can take the shelf from inside and use it outside as a workbench. I also have one on the passenger side. I've got that same shelf, but this time it's hooked on the passenger side. I got my stove ready out here. I've picked the faucet up and brought it outside, running it through this second mount out here. And I run that tube back there to the tanks. Grab the sink from inside, put it out here. Put a little gray water tank underneath there, and voila, we're cooking outside. And what could be better than that? You can cut these with a hacksaw or a miter saw using a special metal cutting blade. But be careful cutting metal on a power saw. You'll probably throw sparks all around. And inside a shop or a garage, it can be a real fire hazard. That's why I take mine out into the yard. So now you've got two 15-inch rails, and you want to take the one with the larger curve at the top here. And you want to put it on the edge of the shelf. You're going to line it up here and make sure that curved part stays at the top. And you know it's the top because you got a leg over here, so you know that's the bottom. Anyway, you're going to line it up. I've already done this, but you basically are going to mark your holes and you're going to drill your pilot holes. For this, I just use number 8 stainless steel wood screws. So this is the rail we just mounted to the shelf, and this is the matching rail that we're going to mount inside the rig onto someplace solid. This is just a sample. Make sure the curved part of this rail is also mounted up, facing up. That way, when you hook your shelf onto that snapped rail, it just snaps together like that, and it makes a really tight fit. You might want to mount yours in front of the sofa, or maybe in the back to be used outside while your hatch is open, or put it somewhere else entirely. And out here away from the van, that same shelf makes for a great food prep table. It's at the perfect height. It's got plenty of space for the stove, the sink, and I have the faucet. And down here, you can see how it connects. I have another quick connect rail on the outside of the sink box here. Now that we have our rails attached, the last thing we need to do is add a table leg. A lot of people use a folding adjustable leg made for RV tables, and those work just fine. But I wanted something more versatile. I call this a magic leg, but it's really just a monopod that photographers use to shoot their video and their photos. And the thing that makes this one so cool is that it has these quick release levers, and you can make it any size and lock it into position super quick. These are only $15 for the cheap ones, but make sure you get one with a round top on it and not a rectangular one like this one. We need the round top for this next part. It'll make it easier. The next step is to make a wood block so that the monopod can slide into it. We're going to have to drill a hole in that. But first, let's look at our monopod. And if you look up here, this one has a notch sticking out of it. I need it to be totally round for this next part. So I'm going to take this cap off. If you slide the foam down near the top here, you'll find a small Phillips head screw. If we remove that screw, we can pop the cap off. I got the screw out, and then I really had to wrestle with the top, rocking it back and forth, but I eventually got the top off. So now we need to measure the diameter of the monopod, and this one is between 1 1/4 and 1.5 inches wide. So I've got my 2x4 clamped down here, and I've got a pilot hole drilled right here, and I've got it marked off at 4 inches. That's where we're going to cut it once we're done, but we need it longer right now to stay in place. And I'm going to line up my hole saw. This is a 1.5 inch blade. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to go all the way through. So now we're going to test fit the monopod in the hole we just drilled. And if it's too loose, you might want to go down one size in the hole saw, or you can put tape, duct tape, or even gaffer's tape wrapped around the handle there, and that'll thicken it and tighten it up. Anyway, I need to take this board out and go cut it. Okay, so now we're going to mount that block at the end, but just make sure you mount it on the bottom side, on the opposite side of your rail. So you come down here, and it doesn't really matter where you mount this block, but just somewhere in this area on this end. And you want to drill a pilot hole and make sure it goes all the way through this block and all the way through the shelf also. So I flipped the shelf over, and now we're going to do just what we did before. I've got the block down there, and I've lined it up on the pilot holes. These are 1 1/4 inch lathe screws, and I'm going to drive them through down into the block. All right, there it is. Now it's in place. We just have to go test it out. So now I'm going to hook this up on my side quick connect rail, and first I lean it up, get it snapped in there, and then I'm going to pivot it down there. Okay, I grab my monopod, slide it into that hole we made, and lock it down. And that's it. We now have a DIY shelf turned into a camper van table. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.